What's up, Purpose family? Welcome back to another episode of the Birthing Purpose podcast. It is the most wonderful time of the year. I want to say thank you guys so very much for your consistency. Thank you all for continually following this show. Thank you for every person who has subscribed to the YouTube channel, who have liked, commented, shared any episode. If it's even one episode, I want to say thank you so very much. We are at the end of a year. Like, can you believe it? We started this podcast in March of this year and we're already at the end of the year. In fact, at the time that you will hear this episode, it will be Christmas Day. So I want to say Merry Christmas to every one of you. I pray that this season will be a blessed season, that you will not forget the reason for the season. So in all of the celebration, in all of the time that you will spend with family, all the food that you will eat and all the fun that you will have, may you not forget the Christ that is the reason for this season. So this is the final episode for this year, and joining me for this episode is a lovely woman of God, and she goes by the name Miss Mikiela Gonzales Campbell, and I'll take this opportunity to introduce her to us. So Miss Campbell is an entrepreneur. She's a researcher, a philanthropist, a budding educational thought leader, and most importantly, she is a Christian, a child of God, who has been called to transform math education in the Caribbean. She has completed her Bachelor's of Science in Actuarial Science and also holds a Master's of Science in Economics with distinction. Mikiela continues to dedicate her efforts towards establishing key relationships between economics and issues within the Jamaican education system. One of her primary areas of interest is exploring issues and solutions that relate to equal access to quality education. She is currently the owner of a tutoring company called Math Wiz Academy. The mission of the business goes far beyond teaching math through also helping students to overcome their fear of math. Mikiela is also a mental health advocate and so uses her business to address math anxiety. In the past 2 years, the Academy has helped over 300 secondary school students from across 7 Caribbean islands. Mikiela ultimately wishes to use her leadership skills, commitment to community service, and wisdom from God to work with the Jamaican government to ensure quality education and increase access to that education, which is a primary priority for her and the nation at large. She hopes to pursue a PhD in educational leadership in the near future. She also co-founded a Christian-based brand on Instagram and on YouTube that is called Rep Your Faith alongside her husband. The aim of this ministry is to help young people navigate their faith in God by talking about the issues they face in a transparent yet compelling manner that invokes true transformation in Christ. Mikiela believes she is all the above, accolades second, and a child of God first. So please join me in welcoming to this podcast Miss Mikiela Gonzales Campbell. Hi Mikiela, how are you?
Hi, Casey and Purpose family.
It's so great to have you. Thank you so much for accepting the invite to be here.
Oh, of course, anything to do with just people God and their platform and just being used for purpose, I'm gonna be there.
Thank you so much. And I also just want to say a very Merry Christmas to you and your family from me and my family and us here at the Purpose family.
It feels like family already.
I'm happy to hear that. And so we're going to just jump right into this episode. And we are still looking on the theme for this season, and that is rising from the ashes. And This is going to be part two. We have three parts. Last week we did part one. This week we'll be looking at part two. And for the new year, yes, we're going to start the new year with part three. So, Michaela, just before we start, of course, I like to break the ice a little bit. And so I'm just going to ask you to just share with us what your favorite pastime is.
Okay, so I mean, in more recent times, it has probably been, I don't, it's not just sleeping, but it's like taking naps by the beach in specific. I feel like that's my favorite pastime. I mean, I don't get to do it as often as I would like, but that's why I'm praying to the Lord to give me, a house that's close to the water so that I can make it a pastime that happens very often, eh? But yeah,
I'm
so I think that's
believing
my
with
favorite thing
you.
to do.
I'm believing with you that it
Yes,
shall be
man.
so. We believe it. That sounds really tranquil and just relaxing and amazing. All right. So, as is customary for this podcast, Miss Campbell, we want to know what your salvation story is. How did you come to Christ? And so, if you could take a few moments to just share with us that journey for you.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, I think it's very important for me to start off explaining that I did not grow up in like a traditional Christian home. I mean, yes, I was told, there is a
Mm-hmm.
God, but even like, speaking about Jesus and just a certain awareness that I think a lot of my other friends had. I wasn't necessarily, you know, told to go to church on Sundays or anything like that. I mean, yes, I knew it was cultural, but I
Right.
wasn't necessarily like grown up in that way. And I say that because I think it makes my salvation story all the more
Unique.
beautiful, and I think it will give hope to a lot of persons who, I mean, for me, yes, going to church, I've also along my journey realized absolutely important just the institution of church. But
Mm-hmm.
I also want a person to know that God can use you anywhere,
Anywhere.
and you don't necessarily have to have a background of family members who know Christ in order for Christ to use you. It simply takes you opening up your heart, and I think that's where I'm going to just get into like the meat of my story, which was the ending of university. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the end of my master's degree, and I was going through a really bad breakup. And I mean, now I would understand the term idolatry. At that time, I didn't know to call it that, but that's
Right.
really what it was. Like this relationship became my reason for living. I remember in the moments when
Wow.
that's when I started to get panic attacks. And it was just every time that relationship was going bad, which was unfortunately very often, it's like I would just literally feel like there was no purpose for living, to the point
No
that I
hope.
actually,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I actually attempted to commit suicide, and
Wow.
yeah, and like that was a big thing for me, and I think I knew that that's where things were getting serious, but again, because of things like soul ties, then the
Mm-hmm.
idolatry, it's like you don't even know how to break from that. And I remember one of my friends, she was going to church at the time, and she said, "Hey, can you just give me a try, just come with me." And I remember going to church there every Sunday, and it was the peace that I felt inside of the church. I became so curious because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what is this? Monday to Saturday, I'm not feeling this. But every time I step into this church on
You
Sunday,
feel
there's
it.
something
Mm-hmm.
completely different happening. And so, that kind of set the stage for what was my first spiritual experience. And I think that's where I really opened up, or rather, it really opened my eyes to say, no, for sure, God is real. And the day when I was attempting the suicide, I was going to drive basically into a pool, and I mean, I had made up my mind, all of those things, unfortunately. And as I'm about to press the gas, it's like I literally feel, I mean, what I would now know would have been angels, but at the time I just felt like so many things hugging me and holding me down. And I remember just seeing a vision of like men, like seeing faces of persons who were in the church,
Right.
and they were actually that Sunday singing the song Reckless Love, and that's the song I was actually
Mm.
hearing playing. And I was just crying and bawling, and like, what is this? What is this? And in that moment, I knew that God saved me, and I think that's where I didn't, again, not having the foundation, I didn't quite know what to do with all of that, but I
Right.
knew for sure that I was curious enough, and I was like definitely sold on the fact that, okay, God, you're real and I'm experiencing for myself. What do I do next? And I feel like I just kept pursuing. I kept going to the church, and then eventually I would have like met upon some some pastors who, shared some videos. So thank God for podcasts and YouTube and all these things.
Right.
You can also get material like even outside of church time. And I remember just God using someone to impact me in a very powerful way. And after that, I just made a decision. Like I knew I wanted to, and so I said, "No, I want to make this official." And then so I decided to get baptized, and I've just never looked back. It's the most peace I've had.
Wow.
It's the most purpose I've had in my life. And so this is why, as I said, this podcast would have just meant so much to me because it's like God finally wanting to, give me more space to share what He did for me.
That's really amazing. I mean, you said so much, and it's funny that you've said it because there are a lot of persons who do not understand some terms that I'll be asking you to expound on in a minute. So it's very interesting that you mentioned those, and I'm really happy that you did. But before we get there, you mentioned at the beginning of your story, the very important detail that a lot of persons, like, it's not unique to most persons, that I kind of feel like people feel like if you don't have that kind of background, like if I did not grow up in church, or I have my parents or my grandparents or just relatives who were in church, then it's so hard for me. But you mentioned at the beginning that you did not have that background, and so it leads me to just ask for you to share with us what your childhood looked like growing up as a child. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking with my husband, just because we usually go over stuff like this, and I was actually thinking about my childhood. And to be honest, it was just very carefree. I think I didn't understand what was real. When I now that I have come together and I have like spiritual eyes to see that life is just so much more than saying, okay, I want to go up to have a nice house and a nice job and a nice car, but there is this calling. Like we've all been put on this earth for a reason. Like growing up, I think I knew my mommy, especially because I grew up in a single parent home. I knew that she wanted greatness for me.
Right.
And I think I just kind of, my childhood just looked like fitting into what mommy wanted me to.
Wow.
So just to explain, like my mommy's the last of 13, grew up very poor, but made it out in a way that she decided, she was going to give me everything that she didn't have.
Right.
And so I think a lot of my life was very goal oriented, and yes, I can understand that, especially before coming together. I hope we get to speak about that in terms of just what success and purpose really looks like, because I also believe before I came to God, I was another version of successful, but it's a very worldly version of everybody just knowing you, and oh yes, you have this nice job and the degrees and all of that, and that's really what childhood just looked like, fitting into everybody's mold of what's the typical idea of success.
Right. Wow. And since we're there, I'll just allow you, because I believe you mentioned earlier, just wanting, and I found myself in the same space, so I totally understand, of just doing something because you want to make your mom happy, you want to take her out of the situation that you grew up in, and all of that. And then you mentioned about the success, but let's just go there for a minute. In explaining, a lot of persons feel as though, if I don't have a degree, if I did not go to college, if I don't own a home, if I don't have a car, I'm not successful. And they don't really understand, like, they define success by the world standard, but they don't really understand the part of success that's tied to purpose. You fulfilling the calling that God has laid on your life, and the assignment, that He has called you on earth to do. And so, if you could just for a moment, like, share a thought on that for the listeners.
Yeah, of course. So for me, like as you're even speaking and I'm thinking about um success, I think the danger of the world's version of success is that you'll never attain. And I say that because how the world teaches you about success is you get one thing and then you're supposed to want
Keep
another thing.
getting.
And you're supposed to want another thing. So it's like when you think about it, when you're in the world or thinking from a worldly standpoint, you are always in this place of feeling less than, or feeling as if, and that's why we get so caught up in the comparison and stuff like that. Because when you come to God now, what happens is that you're supposed to be satisfied, and you learn how to be content, and you learn how to have joy, which means that regardless of what is happening, and it's not to say that you don't want more things. So I also want to acknowledge that, for example, it's not that God does not want us to have a nice house and a nice car. That's
Right.
it. But it's not a case where that is his focus. He's
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, how about we talk about while you're in the house, what is the purpose? You want the house so that person's covet and say, oh yeah, man, kids, you have a nice house.
Right.
Or is it really because maybe you want to be able to host your family? Maybe you want to be a case where persons need a place to stay, you have a big enough space to entertain and to welcome them. Do you want a car simply because you want persons to say that you're, and I know in Jamaica, especially cars is definitely a stamp of, status and stuff like that. And it's like, is that why you want it? Or is it a case where you literally say, okay, God, if you give me this car, I'm supposed to move from point A to point B. Maybe I can do more things for church. Maybe I can do more things for the business that you have placed on my heart. And so I just say that to say that, like, it's not the tools itself that is bad, because I think I also don't want persons to leave here thinking you're not supposed to want things. But I'm saying, why do you, it's like it says, seek the kingdom first, and then those things are added. So before you ask God for the house, like, be very clear on why you want it. Before you ask for a nice job, or yes, you want to be an entrepreneur, yes, you want the degree. A lot of us want degrees just to really kind of have status again, but it's like, why do you really want it? And I think the success just lies in figuring out your why.
Right. Beautifully said, and that's very interesting, because motive is very important. You have to know. Yes. 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 You have to know what your motive is. You have to have the right motive for that. And so it takes me back to earlier when you were sharing in your story. You spoke about this word idolize, and a lot of people don't understand this word, because you spoke about your relationship being an idol, and I don't think people understand that this very computer that I am using can become my idol. My cell phone, a person, a thing, anything can become an idol, because an idol is really anything that you place before God. And when you said that, it's like something went off in my spirit, like, wow, it's beautiful, because I don't think that people understood it. So I'm also going to ask you to explain to them, at the point that you realize now that this relationship is really an idol, like, what brought you to that place? What brought you to that place of identifying that, yes, this is an idol. This relationship itself is an idol.
Right. So the first time I think God placed that word in my heart, I was on my couch. I can remember it like yesterday. And so it was at a point of transition where I am, like I said, I have broken up with this person. But when you break up with somebody, you do the whole back and forth thing, unfortunately. And you're really, I remember God telling me that I was supposed to walk away from that relationship, right?
Right.
However, again, because of just that tie that was there, I was also, I was finding that very difficult. At the same time now, so I'm pursuing God and I'm pursuing this relationship. And the two things are not going together. And I remember I was on the couch and I just literally just heard the Holy Spirit whisper to me, you cannot serve me and this person at the same time. And I said, whoa, and how you know it is an idol is when you even hesitate which one you're going to choose.
My God.
That's how you know it's an idol. Because when you think about God telling you can't have this thing on you because it's pulling you away, there's nothing that's supposed to make you hesitate. And a lot of persons, I can tell you that that's not even just with relationships, because I fell into that trap even with a best friend that I had after. So it's like it was literally a pattern of me having to have the physical, and that happens to a lot of us, right? Because you can't, for most of us, I mean, who maybe don't see in the spirit, you don't get to see God, you don't get to see certain things, and so it's really just faith that we're going on with our relationship. And for a lot of persons, what they really want is the physical. And so that is what idolatry is. Idolatry is really us trying to make gods out of physical things, whether they are literal things or people. And so for me, it's like I didn't realize that I had a pattern of doing that. Growing up, my mommy was my idol. When I started to have relationships, my relationships became my idol. When I broke up and my relationship was out the way, my best friend became my idol. Because at all times, I needed my security and my whole person to be linked to someone, so I wouldn't be able to know who I am unless there was a person that was involved. But as you rightly said, for some persons, it's a thing. That's why they will it's sometimes it's the clothes they wear, then they buy the clothes and then they still need to buy something else. So it can
Right.
literally be right, or even yourself. So even some persons, they become their own idols.
Yes.
And so, for me, I was just saying like that's how it came to me when God kind of posed the question, and I was thinking and I was saying, because God be offering me all these things, He's the one literally holding me through all of this, and yet I am second guessing if I would actually choose God for this person. And so that's how I knew it was serious. And then I started to look up the word idolatry, and I realized, okay, it's not just golden calves, as you rightly said.
Exactly.
This is why persons, if they don't have idols, because they're like, I don't have a statue in my house. I don't have something that I'm bowing down and worshiping. But it's like in a lot of ways we do. People pleasing is a sign of idolatry to, or people that we maybe consider idols. So if that person tells you change your hair, or if they don't like your hair, you change something. Anybody who has the ability to impact your life in that kind of way, especially when you know you're supposed to be doing something else, that's like red flag. So Purpose Family, if as we're speaking, anybody's coming to mind, there may be people that you love.
Yes.
We're not telling you that you have to just totally cut them off, but it is a point of caution and something to think about.
Wow. That's some nuggets there. And I hope that we have took some notes. I hope that we're taking notes, because this is good stuff. This is really good stuff. So anytime you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a choice between a person or a thing and God, then you know that it's time for you to say, hey, okay, this thing has become my idol. And if you find yourself in a place where you feel like you're totally reliant, like your dependence is now on this person or this thing, check yourself. Okay, this is what Miss Campbell is saying to us. You also mentioned very important topic that I really wish that I knew this earlier. I wish I knew this growing up. And so I want everybody to know. It's something I want everybody to know. And I don't think that it's taught enough in church. And it's that word that you call soul ties. Soul ties. I don't think that a lot of people really understand the seriousness of this thing. And so because you mention it, I will also allow you to expound on it.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm going to go from the relationship perspective and then like family and friends. And I keep saying that because a lot of persons detach themselves because they're not in relationships, or because they are not experienced in that way. But it's like you're still at risk. And so Purpose Family, still listen up. Alright? So as it relates to the relationships now, I remember growing up, again, even though I wasn't, growing a Christian home, I think we all knew growing up that we would hear, like, you must have sex before marriage. That's a very common thing that you hear in church, but nobody really explains why.
Apart from getting pregnant.
I was just about to say that, Casey. The one thing I was very clear on is that I was heard, I was told so that you do not get pregnant.
Right.
But it's so much deeper than that. It's so much deeper than that. Even when the Bible speaks about, when persons are married and they have sex and they become one, it literally means that even when you're not married to someone and you go and you have sexual interactions, that in itself, that's where things like soul ties, because it's like that was something that God created, that was supposed to reserve for people who are supposed to connect in a way that is way beyond what any two persons who are not committed to each other should be engaged in. And so when persons go ahead and you do that, naturally you have more attachment to this person. And so a lot of us will find that when we are supposed to break up with someone, knowing that they're not good for us, for example, and you say, why can't I just leave this person? Or you know better, you want to leave, and you just find yourself there. Or even you have gotten the courage to break up, but then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years pass, and you realize that maybe you still message this person, maybe you still, kids, we're not throwing any shit. Right? You still message the person, or the attachment is still too real. So you may find that the next person you date, you maybe give them a chance or don't give them a chance because of things in relation to this person.
Right.
And so overall, right, as it relates to the soul tie, sorry, my husband is here. He clearly wants to add something. So I'm going to tell him to write it on a piece of paper and give it to me, right? He's always very supportive.
Right.
But
I should
but
have
there are also
invited him. I should have invited you both. But I'm
I
sure that in another episode I will have both of you.
no problem at all. No man, it's fine. It's just that these are things that we especially talk to young people about, right?
Right.
Especially because you're thinking, oh no man, I want to live my life first, and it's like, no, those things that you're going, there are consequences. As much as God is love and
Of course.
He is merciful, He is still a God that is just, and therefore, even though He
Mm-hmm.
may forgive you, it does not mean that you always get to escape the consequences,
Consequences.
right? And one of those consequences which we don't like to speak about in this day and age because, as I said, everybody is going for, not everybody, but a lot of persons just like to present the good part of God where we're like, oh, yes, man, just come and He'll love you and forgive you and all that, and which is absolutely true.
True.
But if you're going to say that part, then you also have to ensure that you put the other part so that persons also have a fear of God. And
Yes.
fear of God does not mean that you are going from a place of being afraid, but out of
Respect.
reverence
Mm-hmm.
for Him being in authority and therefore having more knowledge than you. If He says not to do something, you say to yourself, but why would God say not to have sex before marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so in that way, as I said, with the soul ties, of course, being engaged with that partner, wanting to leave. I remember wanting to leave at different points. Both of us wanting to leave and just could not do it, could not do it, could not do it. And so, that for me just kind of like brought it home. And that's when I heard the term soul ties because I was wondering, why is this thing so difficult? How can something bring me to a place of thinking that I am no longer worthy of living? How can I be having constant panic attacks
Right.
and then still just decide to stay? It has to be something greater. And I think sometimes, again, just if you're only looking from the physical eyes, you'll just kind of blame the person and say, this person is a horrible person and X, Y, Z, but sometimes it's so much deeper and it is because of those soul ties why it's not so easily parted.
Right.
And then, as I said, as it relates to even friends, so as I said, that best friend that was also an idol for me when we parted ways, I remember it was just so devastating. And again, it's not to say that you should not love your friends or be very, very close to your friends,
Right.
but there are persons who I think the attachment, if you don't know who you are without someone else, there is possibly like a soul tie going on there, right?
True.
So it's not so any. And my husband and I always use the example of what God is calling us to be is to be like a whole cake. What we like to do is to be like part of a cake, and there's a slice there, and the people who come into our lives, we try to fit them in. When it's like, no, you're supposed to be whole all by yourself.
Right.
Who come into your life are an addition. So maybe they're the ice man, maybe they're the candle, maybe they're whatever, but they're not supposed to complete you.
Right.
The only thing that's supposed to end up maybe completing you is the Holy Spirit and
Amen.
your walk with God. And so that is why when these persons therefore remove themselves, we feel so empty and we feel so, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. There's a part of me who's missing. And that in itself, as I said, indicates soul tie. For me, growing up in a single parent home, remember I said that's just me and mommy. The whole time up until university, me and my mommy and we used to say we're best friends. That what I mean, inseparable, inseparable. Me and mommy, hard. But then I also realized that it would be a case where even when it was time for me to get married, it was so difficult. I literally felt like I had to choose between my mommy and my husband. Yeah, because it was difficult because I was so close to both of them.
Right. So
And I was
connected.
saying to myself, yeah, and I realized that that wasn't because my mommy was trying to be a bad person, but because of that attachment that both of us had that we didn't understand, it's like I am now ripping myself apart to go and attach to someone else,
Right.
and she doesn't understand what does that mean and how she's supposed to deal with it. So I was just feeling all this hurt, all this tension, and I'm saying something is going on here, and then that's when the Lord would have revealed to me that there would have also been associated explained to me that that's where that extra pain was coming from as I was doing that separation. And so yeah, so it was something I had to pray about and something that I had to be very intentional about. And so yeah, so I just want to also say to the Purpose family that if there are persons who are no longer in your life or even persons who are in your life, I have actually even seen couples now where their parents still have a certain like control over their relationship, or there are persons who I have seen they're together and friends. Notice they have this too much of a say in the relationship, too much of a say in certain things, and it's because whether you want to believe it or not, there are some boundaries that you have crossed in those relationships or the friendships that have no, they're not godly anymore, and so you have to. guys, if you want to see your relationships flourish, meaning whether friendships, family, or romantic, you have to create boundaries and respect them.
Beautiful, really beautiful. And I hope that we are taking notes. As I said, I hope that we're taking notes because there's just so much nuggets. And I'm really enjoying this interview. Um, I'm going to go on to talking about you studied actuarial science and you're a maths genius you're a maths genius to the point that you have a whole math academy. And so let's talk about what motivated you to pursue that area of study.
Again, that would definitely be purpose and God. And so I want to talk to persons who are stuck in the pressure of living into people's expectations, because when I decided to pursue actuarial science, I really did that because I was always good at math, but then persons told me, you can make a lot of money from it. And so I did that degree not really because of passion or anything, but simply because I was told that's how I'm going to be quote unquote successful.
Mm-hmm.
After doing the degree, I realized I don't feel passionate about it. I might be good at it, but I don't feel passionate about it.
Wow.
And so to buy time, that's where I went on to do the master's. And even after doing the master's, finishing the top three of the class, all of these successful, worthy things again, still not feeling the accomplishment or the fulfillment that's supposed to be there. However, there was something that was always in the back of my mind that I wanted to do, but I was like, how would I tell everybody who's expecting Mikiela to do these quote unquote great things that I want to be a teacher?
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate because in my mind, teachers are so important, like so important, but it's also a profession that is looked down upon. And we cannot, especially not even just in Jamaica, but in the world, there's a culture where we kind of treat teachers as it's just another job, and okay, yeah, they don't have anything better to do. But it's like, where would you be if you didn't have all the teachers that stayed with you throughout preschool, high school,
that part,
and all the way up? And so I remember going to an extra class, and I saw the teacher. She teaches just in the evening. I mean, I know maths, I maths up is going very quickly based on how much students was there. And I said, no, but this man is living a very nice life. He clearly thanking mommy, he's doing what he loves. And I said, this is what I want to do. But I did not have the courage to say that to my mother. So I just kept that in the back of my mind. At some point, I got the opportunity to actually explore teaching, just feel like voluntarily tutoring. And I loved it, Casey. When I say I loved it, it's something that I just know that that's what God has gifted me to do. And I say, I love this, but how do I tell everybody around me that this is what we're going to do? Especially because they're going to say, I remember one time telling somebody I wanted to do that, and they're like, that's all? So that just kill every dream, kill everything, especially when you're not anchored to God. And at that time, I wouldn't have known God, so you don't know who you are. You don't have true identity yet. And so, and there I'm going through, I'm working for a company, and at some point now I basically make a proposal to them, to basically let me teach and take over that side, because now I'm trying to find ways to merge like what everybody expects me to be with what I want to be, and I want to say to somebody that sometimes those two can't go together.
Right.
At some point you have to separate and you have to leave plan B behind. Like sometimes when you're gonna go into your full purpose and calling that God has for you, you cannot like pay the fence of saying, no man, God, I'm going to do what you're calling me to do, but I'm just going to keep this one just in case. I'm going to do what you're calling me to do, but just so that I can save face so that everybody else thinks I'm still successful in their eyes, I'm going to still keep this image.
Wow.
God says, no, you can't serve two masters. And so, I mean, at that point now...
And you can't take everybody with you either.
Come on, okay, look at that one to get that one message, man. But
yeah.
Again, having the attachment issues, right? That was very difficult for me. And Casey, something as much as I am a woman of God, as you would say, something that's so beautiful is that God has been so patient with me in the area of faith. I have struggled in the area of having faith. And for me, it's one thing to believe that God can do things, but faith is when belief becomes personal. So that, I believe that God lets people leave their job and do great things. But faith is, do I believe He can do it for me? And so, my husband at that time would have said, leave and start your own thing. And I'm like, no, giveaway, I always have a backup plan. I am the planner. I always must have a backup.
You want to be in control.
Everything get to know everything. That's not, first of all, that's not even faith. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to go without seeing. For me, I wanted the faith that said, give me step 1, 2, 3. He said, that is not even faith, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was in the middle of the pandemic. So even doing that too felt so scary. But I did it, and I can tell you, Casey, like God has just been just so awesome. Like there are times when we don't even have to try hard to get students. In terms of we just
Wow.
put out an ad, and God just brings the right students. And why do I say right students? Almost every time we have parents and we say to them, like, how did you find us? They say, I was just praying,
Mm-hmm.
and I go on Facebook and I say to God, God, I need somebody to help my child with maths. And I just see a pop up and I say, I'm going to try it. So even the way the parents have come to us
Mm-hmm.
has just been so divine, so divine.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so I'm at the place now where we have this math company, but again, it's just so much bigger where God is saying, yeah, Mikiela, you're good at math,
Mm-hmm.
but no one even realizing cases it's even bigger than the math. Like we're supposed to literally bring deliverance to students and parents. The math is just how we get through the door. But then, for example, when parents call and you realize, they sound a little bit down, it's like, okay, Mikiela and Kiboy, can you guys at that point extend beyond business and go into ministry?
Mm-hmm.
Kids, there have been parents that we would literally visit their house to go and pray for them and their kids.
Wow.
There are things that happen outside. The math is just, as it says,
A front.
video
Yeah.
and right.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a business. But beyond it, it is literally like God's way of saying, in this way, I can give you the best of both worlds, which is business and serving you. But it has to be in alignment with what I want, And so, yeah, it's just that's what God has graced us to do. We have also started a foundation. So we have the Matthews Academy, which is like the business part, but we kind of want to increase the impact even beyond. And I think that's because the ministry part is probably even bigger than the business. And so we're just trying to find ways to just impact like students and parents because they need the help. And as I said, the need the help is not academically. That is what type of support can you give to parents who are also lost and who also need someone to be there for them.
Yes.
And I just think that there are many ways that kingdom people can get involved with spreading the love of God. And I think sometimes the only way to do that is just in the church. But like God has given you that business to do ministry. He has given you this podcast to do ministry.
Right.
He has put you with that group of friends to do ministry. And I think when we start to realize that our impact is outside of the physical building of church, that's where God gets, to move.
I'm glad that you added that last part because a lot of persons, I feel like, especially in this day and age, it's important for us to understand as believers that the Bible told us, that we should go out into the highways and the byways, and we have to understand that it's more than just being in the physical building, like in the church. Like there's so much more that we can do outside. And I just want to say for your story that this is just a perfect example and a manifestation of the scripture that your gifts shall make room for you and bring you before kings. This is just an example, and I hope that you have listened of your gifts making room for you. So you don't have to go and look for the business. The business will literally come to you when you are operating in the call that God has laid on your life. And so I just wanted to add that in there and to say to you that thank you for your obedience and your willingness, because it took a lot of obedience to get here to the point that you're now able to help others, to be a blessing to others, because that's the whole point of it. God doesn't give us these gifts and these ideas, the business ideas, just for ourselves. He gives these kind of things to us so that we can be a blessing to other people. And so it's really amazing that you mentioned that it's more than just teaching, but there's a ministry in it, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that it doesn't matter what you do. You could be a janitor and be the best janitor. You could use it to do ministry. And so I'm really happy that you took the conversation there. It's really amazing, right? And so from there, I just want to go into also that you founded you founded this what I call a ministry, because that's a ministry in itself, Rep Your Faith. And I just want you to also tell the listeners about that, how it was founded, and just let them know, because of course the more voices that we have out there, it's the better that this world will be. Just like you mentioned earlier, that outside of going to church, we need spaces and platforms that provide us with this kind of food, that we need for the soul, that we can find ourselves, that we can find and understand, the reason why we're here. And so you founded Rep Your Faith, and I want you to just speak to us on that for a bit.
Yeah, no problem. So as it relates to Rep Your Faith, so you hear me speaking about my husband a lot, and that's because
Yes.
we do ministry together, we do business together, and then clearly we're doing life together, right?
Right.
And I think we are just in a unique position where God would have just blessed us in that way, and I am super grateful. So we both give our lives to God, and we both or both of our stories, to be honest, we kind of encounter God outside of the traditional way of just being a part of a church body and it's happening, but more so God kind of chasing after us and saying, hey, let's pull this around and come to me. So in that way now we're both kind of figuring it out together with God. And when we get to this point where I believe we would say that we're totally sold out and we're like, God,
right,
this we want to serve you and we are available for you to use us. The way in which we realized we were really being used by God was really to speak to young adults. And so a lot of our friends around us and close in age group, a little bit above, a little bit below, they would be the ones that would see us going so hard for God and say, like, we're not young, like, we don't want to live in a life first, like, you guys really just going to give up everything. And then I would have left my corporate job. My husband, he would have left talk about me being successful, the job that he was leaving, anybody in this world would have said, especially in Jamaica, would have said, yeah man, that is true success, and walk away from it just because of God saying that's not the calling I have for you.
Wow.
And then persons around us were just seeing these radical shifts and changes, and I think they wanted to know, like, I know I grew up hearing about God, but who is this God that you guys are serving? Because I'm seeing complete change, complete turnaround. And so I think that was what kind of led us to saying, I wonder if we actually did this for more young people. And so even though the page is really for everybody, so that's Rep Your Faith, it's really, really supposed to be geared towards encouraging, especially our age group and younger, to just be bold and to not feel like you're missing out. I think that's a big thing that's kind of like plaguing our generation, especially when you see Instagram and okay, if you're really going to follow God in a certain way, you're not going to be going to the parties, you're not going to be doing a lot of the things that seem like the cool things.
Yes.
And so, for you to have to give up those things, especially because everybody wants the likes and you want to be the influencers and stuff. And in that moment where you're not saying what everybody else wants to say, you also need a community that's going to make you feel like you belong.
Right.
And so that you're not just there by yourself. And so that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a community of persons to realize that, hey, you're not the only one repping God, you're not the only one choosing. And be confident in the fact that you're choosing God, because and I know we say it's the best thing that you could ever do, but it literally is. And so I feel like when, for example, Casey, a lot of the things that I'm speaking about, you're able to kind of echo it, and you're kind of over there saying, yes, that's true, Mikiela, that's true. And just that connection in itself for me, even in this moment, is building my faith, because it's saying, yeah, it's the one God, it's the same God. Me and Casey are in different places, but here we are having the same experience. And so that's what Rep Your Faith is. It's just a platform for us to share and to just make it known, especially to our young people, that there you can still enjoy your life. God is not asking you to just lock away or to not enjoy things. And I don't like to use the word boring, because even that my husband and I spoke about when we say, we don't want to seem boring, but then it's like, what is boring?
Right.
I feel like the world has kind of taught us that, oh well, if you're not wearing certain clothes, or I remember even when I started to change the way that I dress, I feel like when persons would say to me, so Mikiela, you're so covered up. And I remember I used to try to like over explain. And then at one point I said, no. I'm not going to over explain. No. I'm not dressing boring. What I'm dressing is modest. And if for you that is boring, that is fine. somebody,
Mm-hmm.
not even just because of me, but because of being my brother's keeper, for
Mm-hmm.
example. And so just having a different perspective, it's just a space for us to all be confident in the decisions that we're making, but also to know that you're not doing it alone. So that's really what we've been trying to do
Amazing. Mm-hmm.
with the repair play space. Yeah.
That's really amazing. And you guys, you both, you and your husband have been doing an amazing job. I have personally listened, I have personally watched your videos, and I just want to say, keep up the good work because you are doing an amazing job. A lot of the times, you may feel as if persons are not looking, but trust me, there's always somebody out there that is looking. And so, it's important as believers, like persons like you and I who, we heed, the calling that God has laid on our lives and we're doing this. It's important for us to understand that it's never about us, but it's always about God. So even if it's one person, I mean, even if you put up a video on YouTube and it's one view you get, it really didn't matter because you may have just changed one person's life. And so I just want to say, keep it up, and you're doing an amazing job. Right. I also want to go into, I know that I have persons listening to this podcast from all over the world, and I know that there are persons who will be listening who they are still struggling with anxiety and stuff like that. And I know that that is something that you went through and you overcame. And I want for you to encourage persons who may possibly still be struggling with anxiety, trying to handle it. Even what you mentioned earlier about everybody wanting a say in your life. This is how you should live, this is what you should do. And that feeling like you need to explain yourself or overshare why you're doing what you do. I'd like for you to just encourage the listeners as to how they can manage all of that.
Yeah. So as it relates to even my anxiety journey and overcoming that, I went on a series of things, right? Because before I came to God, what I actually did was I did try counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I will not say that it did not work. What I will say is that I believe that counseling and therapy helps you to diagnose the problem, right? And
Yes.
it's a very good way, especially if you don't have friends around you who are maybe aware of like mental health, and you don't really have people around you who you can speak to who take it seriously. Because I remember even when I started to have panic attacks, a lot of the persons around me, actually, like I remember there's some persons who would say it's not real.
Wow.
And like I was basically faking the panic attacks, and that was so hurtful for me because I was like, when I'm thinking of not being able to breathe, that's very real. That's not something I want to do. And I remember, so then you start to feel so closed off because you don't even want to talk about it anymore, which in itself is an attack on the enemy. That's why I'm now spiritually aware. Huh? So it's a case where I go to therapy, and that therapist was able to help me to identify what the triggers were. And so I feel like even if you're not going to go to a counselor, I think even for yourself you can sit down and try to reflect and think, every time I feel anxious, every time this comes on, what write down, or maybe you could even track it for a month or 2 months and kind of see what is the pattern of things that triggers it for you. What I was able to realize is that it's the unknown, and that's why I like to do the control thing, or rather I was like that, where everything, if it was not in my control,
Yes.
that's an issue for me. And the biggest thing that I realized is out of my control, Casey, are people. Like, I cannot
Totally.
control people. So the thing is, when it came on to school, school was great because I can study, do well, and I'm in control of that. When it came on to certain leadership positions or whatever it may be, that was great because I can put in the work, and I put in the work and I expect a certain outcome. But when
Right.
it relates to people, people are so unpredictable. People,
Yes.
you cannot just
Diverse.
decide how. So even if I tell you, Casey, this is how you hurt me, and I'm expecting sorry, Casey, I cannot control how you respond to
You
me.
cannot.
I can't choose how you respond to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a lot of the things that I was going through, that's what brought my anxiety. It was just me not knowing how to process the fact that I am not in control of people.
Wow.
And therefore, when you're not in control of people, you have to therefore go to the person who is in in control of people, which should have been God. And so I realized that God was the only one who was able to bring healing. So even though the therapist was able to bring awareness, all that happened is that every time I would have a trigger, I was very aware why it happened, but I didn't know how to get to a place of, okay, can we move to the place where it stops happening now?
Yes.
And that's where God will have come in. And so, I was able to realize that, oh, so if I can trust my creator who really is working all things for my good, and to understand what that means, and to realize that, okay, if something is not going right in my hand, or in my life rather, it doesn't mean that I need to get anxious because this person is not doing that. I'm supposed to do my part, and I'm supposed to therefore submit the rest to God. Even persons, so as I said, even if it relates to, so in more recent times, I may have lost friends, or certain things would happen, and in comparison to before where I would get anxious because I can't control it, I'm now at a place where I realize, okay, God, but you're in control of my life, and if I am doing what is in alignment with what you have said to me and your word, then at this point now, this is where the faith comes in.
Right.
A big part of anxiety is that you don't have faith. If I could put it plain and straight, like a big part of why we struggle with anxiety is because we are struggling with our faith, and that means faith in God, faith that He can move, faith that He wants good stuff for us,
Yes.
faith that He is going to protect us, faith that, for example, if you're in a bad relationship and you're supposed to leave. I remember one of the biggest reasons I didn't want to leave places that I couldn't imagine God giving me the husband that I have right now. But,
right.
Like, you're thinking about it, but you're saying, but I have to start over.
Yes.
But can I really get somebody, like...
And that's really fear creeping in.
A lot of us, what keeps us bound in situations that we're not supposed to be, is the lack of faith that God actually has something better for you, or will actually give you that thing that is better.
Right.
And so, I just want to say that, like, if in whatever area you're probably anxious about the job or doing better in the job, you have to work on your faith to believe that God can give you a better job. He can give you the job that allows for you to maybe spend more time. Whatever your dreams are, as long as they're God-centered, you have to work on your faith to believe that why would God not want that for you?
Right.
And I feel like if anybody here is struggling with anxiety, I would deeply encourage you to not only work on your faith, because I feel like I wanted to work on my faith, but I didn't know how to do that. And so ask God. He is a good Father. And as I said, when I talk about God's patience with me, there's so many things that whenever I don't understand, I say, God, I need you to, whether it's through a sermon, a video, somebody come say it to me, I need somebody to help me and give me the explanation. And so just don't be afraid to ask questions. Even though He is God, He is also your Father. And think about it. If you had an earthly father that was active in your life and you didn't know something, you'd go to Him and ask. And so I would just say, if you're struggling with your faith, just ask God for help.
Beautifully said. And I like that you said that, that it's really a struggle with faith, because I feel like one of the number one cause of anxiety is fear, which is the opposite of faith. So you find that, you're afraid of taking this step, you're afraid of doing something, so it's usually fear. And so it's very interesting that you said, it's a struggle with faith, and that is indeed true. So if you are listening to this episode, I just want to say that, if you're struggling with anxiety, give it over to Jesus, as Mikiela shared with us. Give it over to God, because even when you feel like nobody else cares, believe me that God cares. And as she has said over and over, that He's very patient. I may not be very patient, but God, God is extremely patient. Mikiela, I also want us to go into steps that persons can take to identify purpose. This is a purpose podcast, and this is really geared towards persons understanding and walking in purpose. And a lot of persons may be at the place that you were like, okay, I'm good at this, so I'm doing it. But I've come to realize that not because you're good at a thing, it means that it's what you should be doing. And so if you could just walk them through steps that they could take in identifying their purpose and actually walking in it.
Okay, yes, as you rightly said, like not because you're good at something, it necessarily means that that's your purpose and your calling. That maybe just something that you're gifted to do. So I think the first thing for me, if I'm going to say you should find your purpose, I think the first step is you have to work on your relationship with God. That means if you don't have one, you need to go and figure out how to get one. And if you have one but it's not where it needs to be, you need to go and fix it up as well.
Yes.
Right? And I say that because thinking about the fact that God is the one who created us. So He is the one that literally puts us on the earth, and He knows, because before we are formed, He already has the plan for us. Now, if I'm thinking about it and let's say I have a fan in my house and the fan breaks down, um, I'm not going to go to a tent to learn how to fix my fan. I need to go to the person who made the fan.
That's right.
Figure out, how do I fix this fan? How do I know how to assemble this fan in a way that can ensure that I get cool breeze in my room from this fan? And I think a lot of us, we are looking for purpose, but then you're looking in the self-help books.
Wow.
We're looking at these influencers. We're looking at all of these things, which I'm not saying entirely bad, but you can't go to them to get the answers when they did not create you. So they also don't know why you're created. They don't know what your purpose is. And so I think the idea of going to form that relationship with the Creator first, I have to emphasize on that part. And that's just because you will then be able to move in clarity, and you will then be able to get all the knowledge that you need, and the help, because really that's what the Holy Spirit is, right? It's our helper. He's our helper. And so therefore, if the Holy Spirit is supposed to help us, that's what He does. Like, the Holy Spirit and me are friends. Like, we talk. Like, if I need to go and make a decision, like, God, what do you need me to do? And I am literally utilizing the fact that that Jesus went away and left the Holy Spirit for each and every one of us to help us through this journey. I think after that step, you want to then start to think about the things that you have a burden for, right? Yes. And I say that because there are different things that I like as well. Just as I say I like math and I'm good at math, but for example, I don't have a burden to sit in an office and calculate numbers. However, when I was able to volunteer with a set of less fortunate kids, and I would realize that being in the classroom with them and just giving them that hope, and then I wonder, when I go home, I'm thinking about them, wondering,
yes.
So like, who is caring about their future? What's gonna happen next? I realize this is not a normal burden, especially if you go to your friends and you say, like my husband, we were talking about this before coming on the call. He says, Mikiela, of course, I love these kids, and he is so supportive. But sometimes the burden that I am carrying for them,
it's not.
He will say to me, Mikiela, like that's how you know it's your calling. It's because I'm like, so everybody out here is not on the brink of crying when they realize as a child,
right?
He's like, they cannot do it. And he says, no, Mikiela, not everybody. So that's my burden. But another friend that I have, to be honest, she has a burden for the environment. And so when there are certain things happening, like she'll become so overwhelmed and just wanting to do something about it. And no, that's not a burden that I have. And so I know that God has, somewhere in the midst of everything, God wants to use her to be a part of the solution to that.
Yes.
And I think as a part of it, I was watching something and it was saying the greatest way to or not greatest, but one of the ways to know your purpose is that, like, think about what problem you were really put on this earth. Now, even if they're not solved by yourself, but that you are a part of the solution.
Yes.
And I think when you can start to identify that, you then start to realize, oh, I don't need to compare myself with other persons because there are too many problems in this world to be solved.
Indeed.
And therefore, even though, yes, Mikiela is over here solving the math problem, there's so many other problems, and even Mikiela, she can't solve the math problem by herself. So therefore, it's like, once we start to realize that God just wants all of us to play a part, and it's literally like a big group project. I know we all don't really like group projects, but this is supposed to be the one group project that ends with a difference, right? And if everybody would just play their part, we would realize that there's literally a space just for all
everyone.
Of us. So I would say to find God, and then to start to think about what are the things that carry a burden for you. And if you don't know that, or if even as I'm speaking, there's nothing that's coming to mind that you carry a burden to do, I feel like at that point, you should, I don't know if you're going to ask me to explain the fasting part of it, but for example, there is the principle of fasting.
Yes.
Sometimes when you don't have answers for those persons who maybe don't know God yet, This is where we abstain from food, but not just because it's a diet and you just don't want to eat. You're actually going to replace it with a different type of food. And so maybe you ask God to lead you to a particular scripture or a particular sermon, but the point is that like you are refraining from something you think you need to give you life and replacing it with something else to just connect with God and kind of your spirit man, right? So even though we are flesh, we are also spirit.
Yes.
And so you want your spirit man to awaken and ask God for answers. So if you're uncertain, ask God for answers. His word says that you seek him, you will find him, and he will answer. And so I feel like based on there, I wouldn't even go past step 2 because I feel like based on when you get there, that's when you just start to like God will literally walk it through with you. As I said, the faith thing, it's not something where you get all the answers. I think somebody said either God will tell you to start and don't tell you to finish, or tell you to finish and don't tell you to start.
Or the middle
But
part.
once he tell you to start, yeah, like he'll tell you everything. You don't even need him anymore. So the point is just to walk it out. And as I said, once you start that journey, his whole intention and our greatest purpose is actually to be with him, right? So even in the midst of doing everything, the reason God gives me the burden of the matthew is because he still knows it's outside of me. I can't do it on my own. And therefore, as I am doing it, I therefore have to rely on him. And so that keeps our relationship going. And so whatever purpose and calling you have is supposed to be something that keeps you in relationship with God.
Yes. Yes, and it's very important for us to know. So thank you for sharing that. So it cannot purpose cannot be found outside of God. And I feel like that's just something that we have to accept. Well, whether we want to accept it or not, it's what it is. So purpose cannot be found outside of God. So I believe that you have shared with them, you know, the most important steps. Because step 1 is, seeking that relationship with God. Or if you already have it, really connecting with him and being intentional, because the Bible says, and it is in fact true, I've tried it for myself and proven it, I'm sure that Mikiela has, when you seek me with all of your heart, then you will find me. So it's just for us to really seek him, be intentional about it, and he will reveal it. He will reveal it to you. I also want, Mikiela, for you to share with us, now that you're a child of God, you found purpose, you are walking in purpose, and trying to fulfill that assignment and that call that's on your life. Share with us what has been the most rewarding thing, and what has also been the most difficult part of it for you, because we don't want to just share the good stuff, but we also want persons to understand that there's also struggles, there's also roadblocks and all of that. So if you could just share with us what has been the most rewarding thing about being a child of God, and also what has been the most difficult thing.
Let's start with the most challenging so that we end on a good note, right? So in terms of challenging, to be honest, it has been the acceptance of the part of the Bible that says that to follow me, you have to take up your cross, and you're gonna have to do that daily. And there's another part I don't have to, I'm paraphrasing, but it basically says that you will have to give up mother, father, sister, brother, and friends. And that has been the most difficult part for me, because in having this radical shift to not partially following God, but what I believe as like a complete surrender. And a lot of the people would not be sold out in that way, yet still believing and praying that they're going to one day. But in the midst of that transition where my life looks completely different, I have found that it has caused a lot of drifting, tension. That I have lost. I don't want to say lost like we're in malice, but the friendships just don't line up the way they used to. The relationships with persons just don't line up the way they used to. And so, in realizing that person for years, and then all of a sudden now, things are so different, I think that has been one of the most challenging parts for me, especially because I took friendships and family so important. So it's like when I'm seeing these changes happening, like it's especially at the beginning, if you're not like solid and anchored to God and you don't, your why is not strong enough, it can feel so uncomfortable and you kind of saying, maybe I'm doing too much and you know, maybe I should just start to compromise and maybe it's okay if I do this. But then you also know exactly what God has told you.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's that whole idea of God daily over your flesh, which can mean over everything you want to do and you would prefer to do, the things that are easier to do, the things that are easier to overlook.
Right.
That has been the most difficult part. As it relates to the most rewarding part, I think the idea of me getting up each day and feeling as if I am walking in purpose, that it is a feeling that I just cannot describe. In terms of when you get up and you're not wondering, oh, am I just going to work or am I just going through the day and it's just another day? Like that's not how I wake up in the mornings, Katie. I wake up in the mornings very conscious of my assignment that God has given me, and so it literally makes me know that okay, I'm here another day, not simply because I'm supposed to pay.
Not just existing, yes.
Right. I'm here because God is giving me one more day to put something towards this assignment, to put something towards this thing that He wants to establish in the earth. And so I just find that, you know, every day that I'm able to do that, and then I see, of course, when persons are brought to God and souls that are saved, and in any way that God is able to use me to do that, I find that so rewarding for just to see persons to break free, because I know the broken place that I am coming from, and so when God uses me for the persons around me, or my students or parents, and I see that they're able to break free from certain things, it is just so powerful to me. Just to know that not only has God done it for me, but that He's literally using me to help others to break free as well.
That is really amazing. It's really amazing. And, you know, before we close out, you know, I just want to say that this interview has been so beautiful. There has been so much wisdom, so much light, you know, and, you know, I'm really grateful to God that He allowed for this to happen. And I'll just allow you to share. I know that persons may be listening who, you know, may want to use the services that you offer, and so I'll allow you to just share with the listeners, you know, ways in which that they can contact you, as well as the services that you offer, so that they're aware.
Yeah, of course, thank you. So as it relates to the tutoring for the math, that is Math Wiz Academy, and that's MATHWIZ. So like, you know, like you're Wiz, you're smart. The Math Wiz Academy. In terms of the number, that's 876-581-4180. So that's 581-4180. But on any of the social media pages, you can find us. And then if you're just looking for a community to just hear messages about God or just to grow in God, that's where you would follow Rep Your Faith. So that's REP, and then your YOUR and faith. And or is it Rep Dot? Okay, so my husband is giving me the correct thing for the Instagram, so it's actually Rep Dot Your Dot Faith. This is a good thing, he's around, you know.
Yes.
So
Helpmate, yes.
Faith, on Instagram. And usually from there, guys, like whenever persons DM us, you know, if it is that you actually need someone to talk to or to minister to you outside, or just to pray with you, or just to hear you out or whatever, we make ourselves available outside of the social media platforms. So don't be afraid to just reach out if you just want to share, or anything that I said while on the podcast stood out to you and you just want more perspective on it. Of course, feel free to reach out. We are very open, very relatable, you know, not scary at all. You can talk to us. And just yeah, Casey, I'm just so grateful even for you allowing me to do that.
Thank you so very much. And in closing, I just want you to share with us what is that one thing, like if you could be remembered for one thing, what is that one thing that you would like to be remembered for? And after you share that, then of course you can leave with the listeners your final thoughts.
So because I do understand my calling, I don't even think it's my purpose, but my calling. To be honest, what I want to be remembered for is being very um, influential in the process of changing the way that we learn math in the Caribbean. And I don't mean for the sake of just learning the math, but I feel like it's going to open up the possibilities of what we do as Caribbean people to not just become consumers, but to become creators. So if you notice in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, what a lot of things like, so we import, we take in the technology, we use the iPhone, we use the laptop, we use these things, but we don't hear a lot of it in the Caribbean where we actually come up with ideas and create things. And I think that's because of the way that we learn in school. So a lot of it is study to pass this test, study to pass this test. It's not really the case that we learn from a place of solve this problem. There's a problem in front of you, solve it.
Yes.
And so I just hope that's with, and I mean, God has been placing it on my heart in terms of how He wants the education system to just to make that change and that turnaround. And I believe that if I can be instrumental in that, I will be remembered for, to be honest, freeing people, not even God's people, but just freeing an entire nation and region, because we would have been able to break free from the bonds of having to always depend on persons and to realize that we are not less than any other place in the world or any other country in the world, that we are also able to create, and we also have smart people. And so that's what I want to be remembered for. In terms of leaving, I just want to say Purpose Family. Just continue to support Casey. There is, we know that we'll say things like, either impact one person, but we don't want to just impact one person. We want to impact a lot of persons.
Yes.
Like, I would just leave you with saying you can help Casey to impact more than one person, which means sharing her podcast, telling persons about her, even you coming on to listen every time. That is encouragement for her.
Yes.
And so, if you see somebody else living in their purpose, just try to be as supportive. And I'm telling you, like, when you're around like-minded people, it will eventually start to happen for you too. So even if you're listening to Casey and you don't quite know your purpose yet, just continue to grow with her, continue to be here. Maybe one of the episodes will just be that breakthrough message for you.
Amen.
And you'll be able to live in your purpose as well. And of course, I just have to end by thanking God for carrying us through this case. It was also beautiful for me. And I just, pray that somebody will have some clarity and the boldness to really go back to pursue their relationship with God in a fresh way. A new year is coming, so I hope they get that extra boost to start to give God a chance in a way that they probably didn't think about before.
Amazing, fantastic. Thank you so very much. And I'll just use this opportunity to declare a blessing, not just over you, but over your entire family, your future children that you don't have yet. And I just pray that the blessings and the favor of God will be upon you, upon your family, upon your business, that it will excel, that you will excel, that the spirit of excellence will continually be upon you, and that in every single thing that you do, that God will get the glory, that you will continue to share God's light and His love, and continue to avail yourself to be used by Him. So thank you again so very much for just being here and for, sharing your story with us. I'm very sure that I have been blessed, and I'm very sure that this will bless others. So again, thank you so very much for being here. This is the Birthing Purpose Podcast. Thank you so very much for listening. Until next week and next year, walk good and take care of yourself.